Welcome back, my dear pondering people. And now I'm going to present you that once you have learned that what is the communication in the real world and in the machine world, we are going to explore about the duplex thing. You might be pondering that what is the duplex. Well, let me take you to the very front that I left it so many space here. Well, what is the form of the communication? Well, you can have the communication from one to many, that one is talking and many people are listening. So this form of the communication, also known as broadcasting. So where it happens? Well, very obvious thing, right? Like television or radio or internet content that you watch, millions of people around the world are watching these things. Like you are watching me right now, you are watching this course right now, and you are learning. So this is one way communication. This is one way communication where I am talking, I am making up the things, and you are understanding that whatever I am saying, and you are learning something awesomely great. So this is one form of the communication. So how we can make it in the two form of the communication, because in the real world we require two form of the communication. So the two form of the communication is simply meaning when in this course, let's say that in this course, when you rate this course and give me your opinion, suggestion, or just anything. I'm not writing, I'm writing comments. When you give your comments or just Q&A, you can ask the question. So when you are talking with me and it comes to me, I am going to reply on those things. So it is a two-way communication. Like you are also saying something and I can also reply on that. So we both have this tool, this way of communication. So this is one form of the communication that we use broadly in all the levels. Like any form of the chatting that we do is a two-way of communication, so let's understand that why we require two-way of the communication. What are the things actually required for the two-way of the communication? So let's hear. So it's something called as duplex. There's a half duplex and there's full duplex. Well, in the half duplex there are two key components. Well, first component is namely sender and second component is receiver. That's it, nothing else, nothing very much fancy about it. Like a walkie-talkie works in this way, or a radio works in this way, or your TV works in this way. So these are all the things that broadcast it in one way. Well, I will take the case of the walkie-talkie in just a minute because it's a little more interesting and different, but for now it's a sender receiver thing. Like someone is sending you something, you are only having by your machine the ability to receive. You cannot send any information. Sending is not allowed to you, and it cannot receive any information. It can only send. So when a sender and receiver is fixed, this is one way and called as half duplex. Well, in the broadcasting case, as we have discussed. Now what about the full duplex? Well, in the full duplex we get our sender with the ability to also receive, and our receiver can also send a message. Well, the best example for this one is the cell phones today. The cell phones or the video call or the two-way chat, these all are the examples of the full duplex. So in the full duplex we can receive and transmit at the same time. In the half duplex we can only receive or only transmit the signal at one time. Well, let's understand that what I mean with the transmitting and receiving. So let's see it here. So transmitting the information means you are sending some words or some codes or just anything, and on the receiver end, this is our sender end. The senders transmitted the information and receiver received that information, so it needs to decode that transmission. decode that transmission So when anything decodes the transmission, it can get the message. Well, there are secured lines, unsecured lines, and all that kind of the communication ways using this. Like any country's military is using the secured line communications, where whenever they transmit information and at the receiver end, when anyone receives that information, it is very secure line and no third party can anyway listen to these things. Well, one of the example is the WhatsApp. In this case, they cannot if you try to read on there and similar kind of the apps, when you read that, it is written end to end encryption. And to end encryption. So encryption simply means encoding. So when you write a message, let's say I write hi to you, now it will gonna convert into a very big form of the coding language, and that is only known to the receiver, that how to open it. So it travels through the public key, but it can only be opened by the private key that is given or having from one end or the first end to the second end. No one can in between use that. So how do we understand that public key and private key thing? Imagine the lock. Well, this is not a kind of the lock. Well, let's say this is our old locking system. Well, so many places in the world it is still being used, including my home. Okay, so this is the lock, and let's say this is your key that you are having. So this is lock and this is key. So when the message is locked, that the thing is called as encryption, or encrypting the message. We encrypt the message, and now it has to travel, but it cannot travel anonymous in any way. It has to travel through the public server. Well, unless you have something special kind of thing, like I said, the military people do have that sometimes. But if we ignore that all the thing, for the most of the world, what we have to do? Well, this key is divided into two parts. The first part is the public key, and the second part is private key. So by using the public key, the message can travel from one end to other end. There are so many receivers sitting right there, but only one receiver who knows the code, who is having the access, or I can say who is having the private key, can read that message and decrypt or decode that message. Decode the message. Rest all the community knows that something is passing by, but they are not having any authority of receiving that in any way. And if it is done somehow, that is called one form of the hacking, because you are listening to something which is not meant for you. Well, it is very difficult because the encryption keys are very complicated. Well, in the real world, nothing is difficult, but I'm theoretically saying you this thing that it is difficult because the numbers are huge. I mean it. It's huge. Like it is about 10 to the power 50. Just get my point. That much. So to decode it, it's very difficult. So only receiver which is having the private key can read that message. So this is the concept of the key and the lock. The lock is traveling, the key is traveling, the key is having public key and private key, and only then we can open or decrypt the message which is encoded or encrypted. That is the way the message is actually working. That is the way the digital communication is actually having its line secure. So that's it for this one. We are going to explore more things in the next one. Till that time, take care, God bless, and keep learning.